Hello and welcome to the video. This is a quick video about something called fine-tuning. Now this is something that you might have seen if you have a multi-protocol radio. Now I'm making this video because at the moment I was doing a video where I was installing a receiver into this helicopter here. This is the OMP Hobby M2. This was something that I got from Scotia RC up there in Scotland. And one of the things you can do with it is you plug in a little receiver on the side running the MultiProtocol, and you can then control everything. However, as part of this, I was then going to do the fine tuning, and I've mentioned it in a couple of other videos in my Modern Heli series. So I thought, you know what, let me do a video about it. The other reason I'm doing this is that I've been flying recently with quite a few people who have things like the Radio Master multi-protocol radios, and they're unaware that this is even a thing. So let me talk about what fine-tuning is and why, if you're not doing it or you're not aware of it, you potentially are losing some of the connection with your model and you're not getting the best out of the radio and the connection that's available to you. So why do you need fine-tuning? Well, it's kind of like in the old days with an AM radio, where if you were trying to tune into a radio station, but you weren't quite on it, you could still kind of hear what everyone was saying or the song that was playing, but it wasn't super clear. However, a very small nudge on the tuning control might get that radio station coming in beautifully clear. It's essentially the same thing for your multi-protocol radio. Now, why don't we have this on more expensive radios that have everything supplied? So the old FreeSky stuff, things like Futaba, Spectrum. Well, that's all tested and tuned at the factory. But because of the very small variances there are with all the components in things like modern multi-protocol radios, that frequency can be just a little bit out. And we can fix that within the software using the fine-tune parameter to get that tuning absolutely spot on, so you have the best connection to the receiver, you have the best reception for things like telemetry coming back as well. Not all protocols have the fine-tune option. It seems to be around the CC2500 chip, one of the 4 chips in a standard 4-in-1 multi-protocol module that you need to do this with. So, for example, if you're using something like a DSM protocol, you probably don't have the fine-tune option. However, with other things like the Futaba protocol that I'm using here on this helicopter, we absolutely do. The other thing to note is that frequency tuning only needs to be done once per protocol. Once you know what the number needs to be, then you can just put that into subsequent setups. It may be fractionally different because of very small changes on the receiver that you're talking to, but if you find that the best number for you for the fine tuning is 10 for the Futaba protocols, then you know what, that's the number you can put in all the other models where you're using that same protocol. So once you've figured it out, you can just kind of use that same number in everything. So let me show you how I do it. There's a number of different ways. It's all in the documentation. I'll put a link down below if you want to go and have a look at it. It explains how to do it. But the way I do it here is, first of all, remove the props from the model and make sure that they are removed in case you do get into a situation where the props start up. And then what I do is I power everything up and then move the model 8 to 10 feet away. And then what I do is select the fine tune and then start to reduce the number. Now, the fine-tune number, you'll get to a point where you'll lose connection. If you're lucky, it'll actually give you the RSSI number on the right-hand side. With this receiver I'm using here, I don't. So what I'm having to do is just move the sticks and find the point where the connection is starting to get a little bit dodgy. Make a note of what that number is. It's minus 37 for me, and then go back and do it in the opposite direction, and then find out again where either the RSSI drops off or you lose connection to the model or it fail safes. And that is the other end. So in my particular example, it went from minus 37 to plus 37. So the middle position of that is 0, which is actually weirdly what my radio seems to need to do. So I think that some of the other protocols as well that need this, I tend to find that 0 actually works really well on my radio, but every radio is going to be different. So if you did this and found that at minus 10 it fail-safed and plus 20 it fail-safed, then that's a difference of 30. You probably want the fine-tune number to be 5 to give you the best possible connection. In the documentation, it says once you've got everything done, go and rebind the model, and I'd recommend that you do whatever it says in the documentation. It's written by the guys who actually understand this stuff better than anybody. So hopefully that helps for those of you that have seen that fine-tune option in the radio. If you see that fine-tune option for the protocol that you're using and you haven't gone through the process to find what that fine-tune number needs to be to give you the best possible connection to your receiver, then this is something I'd recommend that you do to make sure that you don't have a fail-safe when you're flying around. Last tip while we're doing the video is that if you are having problems binding to a particular receiver with your multi-protocol radio and it's a protocol that fine-tune is in there and it just won't bind, then that's another thing to check. If the fine-tune is so far out that the receiver isn't hearing the radio properly and vice versa, you're not going to get a bind. So I would set it to something like -30 and try and rebind it, then set it to +30, try and rebind it, and then once it's bound, go through the fine-tune process. Sometimes that can be part of the issue when you're binding using a new protocol to a new receiver. So now you know what fine-tune is, how to use it, and why it's worthwhile when you see the fine-tune number appear, just making sure that you've got the best possible connection to your model. Thank you for spending your time today watching that video. You can find me in all the usual places on social media, and if you're trying to learn about a subject, then check out the playlist. All of my videos are organized into easy to follow playlists that if you're trying to learn a topic will take you from the basics right the way through to some pretty advanced stuff.